As a small business owner, you know the feeling when you're stuck with hundreds of receipts that you have to enter into your accounting system by yourself. It takes so much time to punch in all of these transactions, to keep track of your records and sort your expenses. So in today's video, I want to show you a solution to this problem so you can cut down your data entry time in half. My name is Alice and I'm a chartered professional accountant, and this video is sponsored by Dext. Dext is an award-winning accounting software that makes bookkeeping easy for you. I have spoken to many small business owners and I know the exact struggles that you're going through. No business owner wants to spend hours in accounting softwares that they don't fully understand how to use. Maybe you don't really know what the best way is to organize all of your expenses, credit cards, and receipts, and you feel like you're guessing. And you really just want to minimize the amount of paperwork that you have to do so that you can pay the least amount of tax as possible. Now, the great thing about Dext is that you don't need to know anything about accounting to use it. It's a very user-friendly program with a clean UI and very minimal accounting jargon. They use AI technology to extract all of the important information from invoices, receipts, bank statements, documents, so that you don't have to retype things out yourself. So back in the day, for a company that didn't have or use a software like Dext, suppliers would email the company's accounting or AP department, and there would be a clerk manually receiving these invoices, manually checking each one, coding them manually to the right GL accounts, manually setting up ACHs, check batches, and wires. So whether you're a small business owner or an enterprise, Dext will save you hours and hours alone. They also have a phone app so you can scan receipts and files on the go. It's fully integrated with all major accounting software like QuickBooks, Xero, and Sage. It integrates with e-commerce and payment platforms like Stripe, Square, and PayPal. Dext is used by over 700,000 businesses that all use the same AI to capture expenses and invoices with 99% accuracy. So this is what the website looks like. I do have a discount code to Dext, which I will leave in the description box below. So we're just going to set up an account here. We're going to click business and we're going to enter in our details. They're going to ask you some know your client interview questions. So if you are incorporated under a company, you would press incorporation, punch in your industry and number of people that work for your company. And for the most part, these are pretty intuitive. So here you just want to select the accounting software that you're currently using, as well as whether you have an accountant or a bookkeeper. So in terms of setup features that I would recommend setting up two-factor authentication, which you can do down here. All you have to do here is toggle on 2FA. You have the option of connecting this with your Authenticator app. Another thing you want to consider doing is giving access to your accountant. So you would just toggle down to the accountant settings and add your accountant or your bookkeeper's email. And what that does is they basically get insight into your expenses. If you have any questions about coding or how to categorize a transaction, it's just a great way to, share your data with your accountant. Now, Dext has two paid plans. One of them is $37.50 a month, and the other is $107.50 a month before tax. And with each plan, you get a certain amount of users. So for the $37.50 plan, you get 5 users. The bigger plan of $107.50 allows you to have up to 15 users. So if you're in the US, which Dext does serve across North America, then these prices would be adjusting accordingly. But most small businesses should and will be able to get away with the smaller plan, which is what I recommend, and then just upgrading to the bigger plan if your transaction volume gets so high that you need the bigger plan. My ballpark estimate just by looking at this is that any company that's doing under $500K a year in revenue should be able to get away with a smaller plan. And the great thing is that you can also purchase additional ad hoc transactions as well. So say you start with the smaller plan here and you're creeping up towards the limit of 250 documents per month or more than 10 sheets of bank statement extraction. You can actually just purchase additional bank statements and additional supplier statements and line item extractions. You know that you're going to be using this for a while. You can save up to 20% with an annual subscription if you pay upfront. So one of the best features about Dext is that it is easily integrated with all of the major accounting software. But as you can see here, they connect with the two biggest bookkeeping softwares for small businesses, which is QuickBooks Online and Xero, as well as Sage and some of these other smaller ones. But we are going to connect to QuickBooks. Nothing that you need to do on the QuickBooks end other than logging in. And this is how you know that the integration has been set up. Now, depending on how your QuickBooks or your Xero settings are done in the back end, you may want to set up some default items for how you want your expenses and your sales to be classified. So if you are usually entering in expenses as bills in QuickBooks, then we would want to select bill here, right? If you are usually entering in sales invoices as invoices, then we'd want to put in invoices. Warn me when creating a new supplier. I would recommend toggling this on so you're not accidentally creating duplicate suppliers. Automatic publishing basically just means that if you upload an invoice automatic publishing just means that if you upload an invoice into Dext, if you turn it on, it will automatically post that entry or post that transaction into QuickBooks. So it's up to you whether you want to turn it on or not. I'm going to leave it off for now because I like to double check and make sure everything's done properly before turning on that automation. Under connections, you can also back up all of your data to the cloud if you'd like. So if you like to have a backup of your stuff on the cloud, Dropbox, Google Drive, or OneDrive, Dext supports that as well. Dext has a really cool feature called Invoice Fetch. This is also a great feature of automation that Dext has. So basically, you are able to connect your Dext account to any vendor or supplier account that currently exists. So if you make purchases under Amazon, under your Amazon business account on a regular basis, and you want those transactions to be brought in automatically into your Dext account, Dext has an integration for that. So say, for example, your company uses FedEx for shipping on a regular basis. You can connect your FedEx account on here, and all invoices that you get through FedEx, again, will be automatically imported through here. This is something that's going to save you a ton of time and hours, because before a tool like Dext, you would have to log into all of your vendor accounts, manually save all of your invoices and transactions, make sure that you don't lose them, and then input them directly into QuickBooks yourself every month. So as a part of your setup, what I would recommend is listing out and coming up with a list of all of your main suppliers and your main expenses and the main businesses that you deal with and that you pay on a regular basis, and then checking to see whether they have an integration. Dext is also integrated with both Dropbox and PayPal as well. Invoices or transactions so if you have any invoices that are sitting in your Dropbox, you can follow these instructions here to enable Dropbox and set up that integration, and then also for PayPal as well. So in terms of the online world and doing business and transactions online, Dext is pretty much got most bases covered for your needs for small businesses. One of the best features about Dext, in my opinion, is that they actually issue you a custom Dext email address. So instead of an accounting at inbox or an accounts payable at inbox for your company, you can just give this email address to all of your suppliers or your vendors that are issuing you invoices manually. It keeps things really clean as well, because you don't want all of these vendor invoices cluttering up your personal email address or your main email address. So having that is great, but they provide 2 email addresses and it's a pretty seamless process. Then if you do choose to use this option, when something comes through as an email, you can set up due dates and payment statuses however you like. A couple more backend settings when it comes to automations and categorization of expenses. So Dext has the So Dext uses their AI to auto-categorize your expenses. And the most important part of this process, of course, is to make sure that Dext is accurately categorizing your transactions in the way that you like them to be categorized. So inside accounting softwares such as QuickBooks Online and Xero, you will have something called a chart of accounts, right? Which is just basically a list of all of your accounts under your company. So when you upload an invoice into Dext or you take a receipt of a photo, you have the option to choose auto categorization. So Dext can automatically apply categories to a new document or a document that it's never seen before based on what the AI has been trained to do in the past. So if you have a pretty thoroughly set up chart of accounts, you can always set the default category to office expenses if you'd like. And I would recommend turning on Supplier Rules as well. Supplier Rules, a great feature of Dext, basically automate any recurring transactions that you have from repeat suppliers. So if you use FedEx on a regular basis for shipping, by turning on Supplier Rules, Dext can automatically code all FedEx transactions the same way, which is exactly what we want. You can also adjust how categories are displayed and sorted. Dext has a really cool feature called auto expense claim. So if you have a vehicle that you use for the purposes of business and you want to keep track of your mileage or car usage, Dext allows you to do that. So if you have a car that you use for business, or you have employees that are, using their cars for business trips, then you can take advantage of this feature. Okay, so that includes auto expense claims as well as the mileage feature inside Dext. But let's say we were to set up an auto expense claim. If you drive your car regularly for business and you want to do a monthly claim or set up a recurring monthly claim, that's where you would do it here. I would set end of the month. You can add any users. Now let's talk a little bit about approval workflows. So when you are a solopreneur, single business owner, maybe 1 or 2 employees, this might not be as relevant. You might not need approval workflows. But as your business grows and there's more people involved, you may want to create approval workflows just to set some controls in place to make sure that any expenses that the company pays for are valid, are agreed upon, so you know where your money is going. Now, approval workflows can be set for both costs, sales, and expense claims. I would highly recommend setting them up for expense claims first and foremost. So that's if you have any employees that are submitting expenses under your company. For costs, it's up to you. As the company grows, you probably want to have some thresholds for when expenses are approved without creating too much bottleneck in your operations. So it's not that every time a $30 invoice comes in, you have to approve it or go through an approval workflow, because that just creates too much friction. But let's say that your threshold is $5,000 or $10,000. Anytime a transaction is over that amount, it has to go through the approval workflow. Sales approvals are great for businesses who currently need oversight before issuing invoices, just as expense approvals can help manage outgoing expenses. I'm just going to show you what this looks like when you are setting up an expense claim approval process. So you just toggle through here and basically assign the approver and the condition. So for expense approvals, I would say it's always of any amount, and the manager probably don't want them editing the expense approval. You probably want it to go back to the employee who submitted the expense if it needs to be edited. And auto publish once approved. That's up to you. We're going to turn that on and then hit save. So that's an expense approval workflow. And later on in the video, when I actually submit an expense approval for claim, you'll be able to see how the expense workflow works. I'm also going to set up one for costs as well. And I think these are okay if we just default them to all. And we are going to set up a threshold of $5,000. And auto approval is okay if it's on. So again, if you are a business owner or a realtor and you use your car for work, this is where you can put in your vehicles. So the first thing you would do is you would set up your actual vehicles and like punch in a vehicle that you own, right? So, or maybe it's like an employee's vehicle. Okay, you're just gonna add that there. Now, there are some rules in both the US and in Canada on mileage rates and how much you can claim based on how much you drive. I would recommend checking in with your local accountant to see what the rules are for you, but the IRS rates are here if you need to confirm and be sure. Lists are important because it's basically the back end of Dext and how it's actually working in combination with QuickBooks, okay? This is also known as your chart of account. So if you are integrating with QuickBooks, basically whatever categories that you already have in your chart of accounts inside QuickBooks will be pulled automatically into Dext. And I highly recommend keeping it that way and not changing things. So your chart of account in Dext should be the same as your chart of accounts inside whatever accounting software that you're using. And as you can see, these are basically the same accounts that are in here. They should be the same accounts as are here. Tax rates. So if you have tax rules set up in QuickBooks, this is where they would pull into. Products and services. So these are all set up, again, pulled in directly from your accounting software. If location is applicable to you and you want to code transactions by location, that's where you can do it. But again, this all pulls from your accounting software. So payment methods, I would recommend setting this up. So if you have a company credit card, company bank accounts, I would recommend setting them up here. So what this does is when you are entering in transactions, it allows you to automatically code to a payment method if you've already paid, right? So if you paid for something with your Visa, and you're just bringing the transaction into Dext, by selecting company Visa, and I'll show you in a second what that looks like, it automatically will mark it as paid under the visa. Okay, so this is just to keep things really clean and just maximize your use out of Dext. So it's actually creating efficiencies for you and not being an additional software that you have to spend time in. Auto publish, we can set that to on. Publish to credit card, assuming that you're using the credit card feature inside QuickBooks. So what Dext comes down to in a nutshell is 3 primary inboxes: costs, sales, and bank. So there are a couple of different ways that we can enter in a receipt or an invoice to your company, or an invoice issued by your company, a sales invoice, into Dext. Okay, the first is to upload directly through their web browser using their drag and drop feature. We would click add documents at the top, and we can see here that there are 2 different settings. Okay, one of them is 1 document per file, and then the other is 1 document per page. So if you're uploading a single PDF, 1 page of an invoice, that's what you would select here. If you're scanning and uploading a batch of invoices, then 1 document per page is what you would select. And what you can see Dext has done is that they've automatically scanned the invoice for the date, for the document reference, for the due date, and they've even categorized this into a category. Again, that's where the magic of the software is, because this is going to save you hours and hours of having to do it manually. If anything here is incorrect or you feel like you want to change it, you have the option of going in to do that. Now, let's say based on the nature of your business, this expense should actually be categorized to cost of goods sold rather than contract labor. It should be a COGS labor. You know, you can see here that they're automatically giving you the option to set supplier rules. And I would recommend setting supplier rules. What that teaches Dext is that from now on, all invoices from this supplier are going to be categorized as cost of goods sold, categorized correctly, right? So their AI is really intuitive and really intelligent, but you know, it's like at the end of the day, it's your business and you know your business best and how you want things coded. So there's the automation feature, but then also the human touch element, if you will. So if you want all of these invoices to be coded a certain way, this is where you would basically change the settings. So if all invoices from Fountainhead A&E come in and they're all due on net 30 payment terms, right? Like you can just punch in net 30 here if that's what you agreed on with your supplier. You can also split invoices as well. So if you know that all transactions coming from this supplier are, you know, going to be allocated 20% here, 80% there, this is where you would create the split smart rules. And you would just go by either percentage amount or fixed amount, probably percentage amount. And then you also have the ability to create line items. Okay, so this invoice is $11,000 and Dext has automatically captured that and categorized the whole thing to 1 category. But if we want to break this down and have more detail in our transactions, this is where you'd be able to do it. They also have a built-in control feature here, which I really like. Now, remember earlier we had set up an approval workflow to make sure that all transactions over $5,000 require approval. You can see here that the approval workflow is working, or the settings are working, because it requires you to go in and actually request approval. So if we just hit that button, now whoever is required to approve the transactions would have to go in and hit approve. Now, the most important part is to make sure that it's been captured and taken in accurately into QuickBooks. So I went into expenses and I just double checked, and you can see here that the category has been split accordingly based on how we allocated directly inside Dext. So this is really, really good. And you can see here that the invoice has already been attached. So yeah, I mean, this is the magic of Dext, and this is what the software is meant to do, right? I'm going to show one more example here. And as you can see, once the invoice has been uploaded, it goes into processing. Now, while that's loading, I just want to talk about the email feature that Dext has. So again, we have this email address that if we were to send invoices to directly, Dext would automatically pick up the invoice. So we're going to test this and see how it goes. Okay, so we are going to test this and see how it goes. By attaching an invoice. So the email feature that we use, this is what it looks like once it's been uploaded. And as we can see, that has been captured via supplier email, and it's going to be queued for extraction as well. So now one thing to note that this is a fictitious invoice, so the invoice date is off. And we can also see that the AI description feature had picked up the text description from the invoice. Value of the invoice is over $5,000, which is one of the rules that we set up. It's going to require the next step to automatically be requesting for approval, which is exactly what we want. We can also create line items in here too, if we'd like. Going back to Quest Provider, we are just going to come in here and categorize this lawn care and maintenance. It's picked up the tax, which is awesome. We're just going to leave payment method blank and publish to bill. We're going to create line items. We're going to set up supplier rules so that pretty much all invoices that come from Quest Provider in the future are classified as repairs and maintenance. And that will be done. This Quest Provider transaction can be published directly to QuickBooks. You just hit publish there. Now under the archive of your costs is where you can see all of the invoices and expenses that you've ever entered into your cost inbox. And then there's also a submission history, which is basically an audit trail of all transactions that have gone through Dext. And then they have an advanced search feature as well with different filters. So if you have a lot of transactions in here and you're looking for something that was entered in a certain time, a date, a certain supplier, this is where the features of the advanced search would come in. So after costs, we have sales. Sales invoicing is really useful and works just like costs. It's very easy to manage and automate. If you issue PayVal invoices to a customer, or you're manually creating invoices from Word doc, or you have invoices from Stripe, you can basically drop them into here and classify them, and organize them by customer before pushing them through to QuickBooks. Now, you also have the option of going into QuickBooks and doing it there yourself, but I'm just going to show you what this looks like when we use the feature. So same thing with expenses. We're basically just adding documents and we're selecting a file that can go in. So I've uploaded a sales invoice and we're just going to let this process. So let's say we run a handyman shop and our business is called Tom Green Handyman and we are invoicing Mr. and Mrs. Fielding. And you can see here everything's kind of been caught by Dext. And it's also accurately captured this is time-based billing, so that's pretty accurate. Now if you want to, you can break down these line items because part of this is labor and this is materials. So if labor is $9.50, we could do it this way as well. Dext also has the option to basically keep track of all your customers. You can come in, you can put in information, smart rules about them, anything that might be applicable. And then you can also see that it's flagged that it hasn't been entered in QuickBooks Online because, let's just say this is a brand new customer. Now, you can also put in additional information about what you actually sell. You sell products, you sell services. If you sell a service, is it time-based billing? Is it project-based billing? You can set that up inside your accounting software and then it'll bring things over automatically if you want to keep track of time and hours billed and stuff like that in labor. And this is ready here to publish. So we're just going to hit publish. And then the bank side. So you can come in here and you can set up any bank account and integrate with your bank account so that Dext can automatically pull the transactions in that account. So that's where you would add bank account here directly. You can also upload statements onto here. I uploaded this bank statement. This is not my bank statement, it's just one I found online, but this is a bank statement that I uploaded directly into Dext. And as you can see here, it's pulled all the transaction out pretty accurately. It's captured the opening balance of the bank account, the ending balance. Now what Dext is allowing you to do is basically to download these files and export all of the data. So this feature in Dext is data extraction, but basically what we can do is we can just export these transactions into Excel or into a spreadsheet in the format that we need it in based on our accounting software. So one of the best features about Dext is that they have a mobile app. So this is the app tracker. I've already downloaded it, but let's hit the open button. All you have to do is log in. It's pretty intuitive. You have costs here, you have sales here, and you have expense claims here. And then you can also set up integrations with your phone. Say we want to possible. And then all we do is we hit the submit button. It's automatically going to upload and extract that transaction. So where the mobile feature comes in really handy, I mean, it always comes in handy to have a mobile feature and be able to take photos of your receipts, is when you have employees that are capturing expenses on the go for business, and they're able to basically download the app and create expense claims with their phone, which I think is really powerful and really fast and efficient for small business owners. A lot of bigger companies, they will use a expense claim system like Expensify, Concur, Rippling. There's a whole bunch of them out there now, but I think this is really nice because your employees can download the app and then just, you know, it just saves a ton of time. I think saves accounting a ton of time and just saves a ton of administrative time. Your employees can also download the app and upload their expenses on the move, which also helps you save time as well. So it only takes a couple of minutes to extract receipts, but it's a great way of keeping track of your expenses. And on the mobile app, you also have the ability to add those expenses directly to an expense claim. And this is what it looks like when the expense approval is complete and the receipt's been attached to the expense claim to finish off this workflow. If you like this video today and you like learning about AI and automation tech tools, then I recommend that you check out my Notion AI video, which I'll leave a link for up top here. But in that video, I do a step-by-step tutorial very similar to this on how to create a budget, a personal budget with Notion AI. I'll also leave a link below if you want to register for Dext as well. I'll see you guys in the next video. Until next time.